in so much trouble with the school teachers in Hong Kong right now. Malik Bilal, did you produce the string? Because we are being tweeted by students and it's early.
Yeah, we will be in trouble once the teachers wake up. So we are getting tweets from Hong Kong and from students, and they're sharing their personal experiences.
Sure.
Like this video comment sent in by Sumi. Have a listen.
Student in Hong Kong of Nepali descent. I've been studying in Hong Kong for 8 years now, and I still can't communicate in Chinese fluently. I can read and write only the basic Chinese. Our classes are divided into two parts, EMI classes and CMI classes. I think that really holds us back from knowing the Chinese students better, communicating with them, and fitting into the Hong Kong society.
Well, she references English medium instruction and Chinese medium instruction. We'll get into that during today's show, but we can't do it without you. So tweet us with #AJStream.
And remember, you keep us on our toes regarding the story ideas, so share them with us and things that you would like to see covered. You can post them on Instagram using the #AJStream or comment on our page. Just go to instagram.com/AJStream.
Hi, my name's Carla McGrath and I'm the Head of Sustainability at the National Centre of Indigenous Excellence, and I'm in the stream.
Have Hong Kong's ethnic minority children become a lost generation? The city attracts a diverse group of immigrants from all over South Asia whose children have a hard time thriving in the education system. Education activists say it's because of Chinese language requirements and under-resourced schools where a majority of working-class students enroll. After graduation, they encounter barriers to higher education and limited job opportunities. Despite moves to provide Chinese language classes, parents and students argue that's missing the bigger picture. After years of contentious education policies, how can Hong Kong help young student minorities catch up with their Chinese peers? Joining us to discuss this from Hong Kong, we have Jeffrey Andrews. He's the caseworker at the Christian Action Centre. That's a drop-in centre for refugees, and his family has been in the city for 3 generations. Carlos Soto is a secondary school teacher and researcher who's been living in Hong Kong for the past 5 years. Kirandip Kaur is a 9th grade student of Indian origin, and she's passionate about education reform. And Celeste Yun is a former primary school teacher and a professor at the Hong Kong Institute of Education. So it's really hard to get a sense of how the inequality takes place in Hong Kong until you hear some personal stories. So I want to start with Kiran. She's 15 years old, and you go to school in Hong Kong, Kiran, right now. If you had to explain the difference between you and maybe a Cantonese-born student who was of Chinese ethnic origin, what's the difference between the way they go to school and how you go to school?
Actually, how we go to school, it's every day we go on the street. We face a lot of discrimination. But actually, Chinese people, they think they're local, so they can go freely. But whenever we go to the way of school, we get very different type of stare from people, like who are they, from where they come. And then after that, when we enter the school, it's like we are divided. It's like local students and ethnic minority students. And somehow I feel like local students, usually, whenever we have the assembly and those stuff, it's usually in Chinese compared to English. So I feel like Chinese students, yes, it's their local language, but somehow they're being, they're being disconnected with us. That's what usually happens. And what's the difference between us? It's we're actually not having each other's culture.
There's a little bit of a gap there, but
culture background. We're not knowing about each other's culture.
Okay.
It's like ethnic minority students know about, suppose I'm Indian, so I know about some of my Nepalese friends' culture. But Chinese, we're not aware of Chinese culture, and the Chinese people are not aware of our culture.
All right, so
that's
Kiran,
the biggest difference I think we're facing right now.
All right, Kiran, let me bring in Jeffrey. He's a little bit older than you, but he also went to school in Hong Kong. Jeffrey, does that resonate, what Kiran was saying?
I mean, as I said, for me, 9 years of compulsory free education from the government. I have never sat next to a Chinese person.
How is that possible? How is that even possible?
It's possible because we ethnic minorities are put into segregated schools. So even if we go to school with local Chinese, we are segregated. So we got the English section and the non-Chinese section, or the Chinese section and the non-Chinese section.
Malika?
Well, it's interesting. Jeffrey mentioned ethnic minority, and so there are some members of our community who want us to really break that term down. Mm-hmm. Miguel on Facebook writes in, there are many ethnic minority groups. There's Australian, there's British, there's French, among others. But do kids from these groups face the same issues as kids from Nepali or Pakistani working class backgrounds? Anyone living in Hong Kong knows the answer, he says. So, Carlos, I'd like to direct that to you. What is the difference, and can you explain that for our international audience?
Sure. I mean, Hong Kong calls itself an international city, which means that there's a community of people coming from all parts of the world. The difference is that you have large communities of South Asian heritage, we're talking Pakistan, Nepal, India, who are actually been part of the cultural fabric in Hong Kong for much longer. Either they came here, 3-4 generations ago, and sometimes longer ago for business, or as some part of a British military force. And so, particularly Nepali, Pakistani originated people tend to be stuck in intergenerational cycles of poverty. So they actually are very local themselves. Sometimes they've been here much longer than people of Chinese ethnic background. But they're kind of stuck, for the most part, in working class positions or even positions of poverty.
So this has a basis, Celeste, in 1997, when the British handed over Hong Kong as a British territory, handed it back to China. Something very specific happened in 1997 to the schools. Can you explain to our audience what happened?
Celeste, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. You mean since 1997, when Hong Kong rejoined China? I think when the education system have turned back to the Chinese government, not much happened in terms of policy, but there will be a kind of increasing emphasis on the Chinese language in the society. Okay, for example, if you want to find a job, you need to have certain level of Chinese competence, otherwise you won't be able to get admitted. Before the changeover, I think some South Asians, they were admitted to the civil service organization because they are quite good in terms of English. But without basic Chinese, they were still qualified to do that. But since the changeover of the sovereignty, then I think everyone who wanted to enter into civil service, they need to have certain kinds of non-Chinese students under the same school, under the school roof. I think that have been changed recently, but unfortunately, this has only happened in the past couple of years, when the government gradually addressed the issue that we need to have an early integration of non-Chinese students, not to reject them, not to chase them out of the mainstream schooling. Therefore,
so Celeste, what do you mean by early integration? Because are they literally kept separate? You have Chinese students here and other ethnic minorities over here, and they're not allowed to mix, or does it happen because of finances or because of language? I just want to make sure that our audience understand why there is this difference.
All right. I think language barrier is the main difference between the two groups. Well, the government classify whoever mother tongue is not Chinese recorded non-Chinese speaking students, NCS, non-Chinese speaking students. But the point is, even though they admitted into the school, as some of them have said, it's Jeffy, or was it Jeffy, saying that they will have an English class, a Chinese class, or kind of a different recess times, so that they will mix up together.
Okay.
I think one good reason could be to avoid the kind of communication barriers.
All right, so it's a language thing. But Kieran, do you have Chinese friends?
Yes, I do have Chinese friends, and somehow I feel like language is not only the which
Right.
is coming in between us.
How's your
The thing which
Cantonese?
is- it's okay. I can speak. I can have a conversation. I can have a conversation with the person.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too good, but it's okay. At least I can have a conversation with my friends. And what I would like to say is, language. It's a piece of it, but it's not the biggest problem. I think the biggest problem, according to me, it's we are not taught to communicate with each other. Like we.
How do you
There's no
teach that? How do you teach two kids just to talk to each other?
Well, it has to start
How
from the
to
education.
talk to each other. I think while you are in the classes, somehow knowing about each other can
All right.
make you to talk about each other.
All right,
Can
so-
make you to have a communication.
All right, Jeffrey, what did you say? Just say that
I mean,
again.
if I may add, because it has to start from kindergarten onwards. You have to have this, kids sitting
That's
with
right.
each other and not
Yeah.
see any difference in
Exactly.
skin color
If you
or
have
language,
it-
and then you can start speaking the language Cantonese. I was forced to learn Cantonese because I was discriminated on the football pitch, and I thought I need to pick up this language to know what they're talking about. And I just struggled and picked it up. But I still have friends who study with me all the way through secondary school and through high school who still till today cannot speak the language. And that is a pity. And it's a sad reality of what is Hong Kong.
Jeffrey, you said it has to start from kindergarten. There's a couple of people here that are chiming in on this discussion on language, particularly. Reshma tweets in, she's lived in Hong Kong. She says learning Chinese helps to communicate with local people in Hong Kong, but there's been a problem for many students to learn this language. We also got a video comment from someone who elaborates a little more on this theme. Jeffrey, have a listen to this.
Last year, I volunteered at a government primary school helping the ethnic minority kids there with their homework. Although the school was Chinese medium, the teachers there didn't really take into account the fact that their students came from non-Chinese speaking backgrounds. I think that Chinese language lessons would be extremely helpful for these kids, but more importantly, their teachers also need to be trained to be culturally competent and sensitive. For me, I studied Hindi and Urdu in college, and it was really helpful to connect with these kids when English and Cantonese weren't enough.
So Jeffrey, she says many of these kids come from non-Cantonese speaking backgrounds. Has that been the experience in your case?
Likewise, like me, I mean, this is not my mother tongue. We speak, English, our own language like Hindi or whatnot. But again, in Hong Kong, for the local Chinese, they had two kinds of exams for the English language, which was syllabus A and B, which was, I think syllabus A was an easier option for them to take. Why can't they have the same thing for us? Or, we do need remedial classes. We do need support. Yes, it's not our mother tongue, but today we see a reporter of this, and she is a local Chinese reporter, and it's possible, but we just need a little bit more, effort, and I think the government has to put more effort into making this happen, or else again it's a vicious cycle for us.
Carlos, so go ahead.
I feel like jumping in because already the conversation is being limited to this issue of language, because I think we can grab onto it easy. It's very convenient, but I think Kieran was trying to allude to the fact that it's a lot more than that, and so you really have a system of education that more and more it's based on how much money you have, and so there's something that we call the shadow education industry here, which is just this tutorial industry that I participate in, where it's very common for students to spend about $1,000 US per month just to get additional help on their studies. And so more and more, money is what determines what level of education you get in Hong Kong. And what we see in our school, we have about 50% ethnic Chinese students, 50% non-ethnic Chinese students, is that one of the big barriers is that working class poor Chinese students themselves are very marginalized in the society and in the education system. And so,
Carlos, how do you fix that? Because the way you teach is a different way of teaching. Is that one way of fixing it? Can you explain your teaching style?
Sure. I think, in Hong Kong, we're very lucky to have all kinds of resources, but the major mode of teaching here, like other parts of the world, is a teacher comes in, they have a textbook, and you basically have to memorize what's in the textbook. There might be a little PowerPoint, but that's it. It's what we call a transmission pedagogy. I've got some knowledge, I'm going to shove it into your head. It doesn't work for teaching Chinese, it doesn't work for teaching English, but I think maybe Kira can explain it a little bit more because she's
I want to explain it.
Actually, I would like
to explain it. actually, if Mr. Carlos Soto, he's my teacher, so I can explain his way of teaching compared to my other teacher's way of teaching. Actually, my other teachers, what they mainly focus is, guys, listen, you have the examination, focus on that. This is your syllabus, this is what we are supposed to learn. But Mr. Carlos Soto, sometimes when he sees some kind of problems going in our class, he take out that subject, which helps us a lot, and then he try to teach us on that basis, which we learn about our social life and by which we can cope many problems in our life. And yes, we do get the same education that other international schools get. We are not lacking behind. I think by the help of Mr. Carlos Soto, we are learning something which is extra and which is really useful in our life. Without it, I don't think we can really have a better life. I think that's the way for us to cope with our situation, and that way of teaching just gave me a hope to carry on learning. That's the thing.
Kieran said something in there that we really have students who sit in classrooms and they don't have a lot of hope in their lives. And oftentimes they feel like a need for love, a need for belonging is not being fulfilled. A lot of these kids, their parents work 2 jobs. They rarely see their parents really have that guidance. And so they're in schools that don't help them to meet these needs that they have in their lives. And it's
so is it the actual, Carlos, I'm just trying to get to this, okay, to the nub of this. Is it because the schools are not qualified to teach children who come from diverse backgrounds? Is that the reason?
Including students who are Chinese, who are working class. The school is not even set up for them.
So it's a general criticism of the Hong Kong education system then?
Yes.
Right.
And so if we don't answer that question, if we don't say, how are we going to teach for equity in Hong Kong, how are we going to teach in a multicultural way, then these language classes won't make any difference.
All right. Okay. Malika.
I would like
Karen, just very briefly, Karen, go ahead, because I want to bring in some of the community, because they want to talk to you as well. So very briefly make that point.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I would like to add to this, like, as Mr. C said, this is not just ethnic minorities problem, it's even local Chinese problem.
All right.
Chinese
Great.
problem.
Karen, we've got that point. Let's go to the community.
Well, on that point, I think what we were talking about is it's not just language. And Carlos, you've made that point. So Celeste, I want to hear from you based on this comment we got on Facebook. Karima says, I have a younger brother studying in a Chinese medium school, but he's failing the Chinese subject. In addition, he also needs to learn math in Chinese, and that's difficult for him. So someone else tweets in that he's an educator himself, this person writes, and I see minorities in Hong Kong facing problems not only in Chinese, but also in other subjects too. Ask why. Can you answer that? Why is it going across the board?
I think this is a very complicated issue. On the one hand, I think it's fair enough that the teachers, to some extent, that are overloaded by the kind of examination-driven system to make sure that the students are doing well academically. On the other hand, they are not interculturally sensitive enough to address diverse cultural needs. That's fair comments.
So Celeste, I just want to pull you up on the culturally sensitive enough. What do you mean by that? Unpack that for me a little bit.
Okay, the majority of teacher community in Hong Kong, they are local Chinese. Mm-hmm. They were born and raised in Hong Kong, right? Very limited exposure, personal exposure to other cultures. So we cannot expect them being a professional teacher at the same time being a professional cultural bridges. So it needs a kind of deliberate attention and space for them to be trained, to further develop, to pick up that kind of sensitivity. Sure. Honestly, because of traditionally the non-Chinese speaking students being excluded from mainstream education, they have limited experience in teaching non-Chinese speaking students.
So it's a learning curve for everybody then, Celeste. Basically.
Exactly, yes.
Right.
To be fair to them, I believe that because the government wanted to say, okay, because of the Equal Opportunity Commission had to enforce that now you had to provide equal opportunities for all students to enable success. Then the teachers had to pick up new skills and knowledge.
So the teachers are learning the same way that the new students or the immigrants coming into the
even the teacher educators, we have to learn as well to pick up what is going on. The society are changing very rapidly.
So let's take a break because I'm running out of time here. I know Jeffrey wants to jump in. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say because, I mean, it's not just Cantonese that were struggling in that, as ethnic minorities, but because the government, the workforce, the public sector has put so much emphasis on Cantonese that, as soon as you fail that one subject, your career prospects are done,
Right.
the university.
And this is really important. Yeah.
You fail one, you don't have the motivation, to continue to study the rest of it.
Sure.
And many ethnic minorities haven't fall into that trap.
I just want to jump in here just for a moment because Celeste was mentioning cultural sensitivity, and I was on Carlos's Tumblr page here. It's Hong Kong Teacher, if you want to follow him on Tumblr. And it's something that we also featured on our web exclusive. So have a look here at my laptop. Here we are looking at a textbook from the liberal arts discipline, and it says fill in the blanks.
Classic.
So it says Japanese, Indian, British, Chinese, Korean, Filipino. I am a blank English teacher. So it would be British for the English teacher, Filipino for the domestic helper. These are the correct answers, by the way, everybody, if you didn't realize. Japanese for a sushi restaurant owner, and then I am Chinese and Shanghai is my hometown, and so on and so on and so on. What is that telling us, Carlos, about Hong Kong?
Unfortunately, this is all too common at the primary level, at the secondary level, that there's a very stereotypical approach to knowledge in general. Because it is exam-oriented, people are looking for a shortcut, a bite of knowledge that they can take and sort of throw the rest of the apple away. Dr. Yoon, I read some of her research, and she also looked at the experiences of students who are arriving from the mainland, who are coming in, sometimes speaking Putonghua. And in her research, she's also called for a multicultural approach to education and to teacher education because it affects Chinese students also coming into Hong Kong. And so Hong Kong is being accused now of developing a narrow provincialism as a society. And so, the government is about to spend $200 million on Chinese language education without any holistic vision for what needs to happen to bring a society together.
So is everybody up for this holistic vision then? The teachers are learning, and then it has to be more than just paying a lot of money to teach everybody Cantonese.
Yeah, we need teachers with an open heart, and I think in Dr. Yoon's research, you've got some teachers who are active and committed to the students, and then you've got teachers who it's like pushing a rock, and they won't move unless they have to. And a lot of the school administrations are also that way. There's some good people, but we really need more good people. We need people coming in with a heart, not just.
Allow me to say one thing. I think the key is.
Celeste, just make it one sentence because I'm out of time right now.
I think that the key is about the policy. Okay. If the government have made a policy to address the needs of diverse cultural needs in mainstream school, that will help a lot.
All right, very good. So we are going to take these guests, Celeste, Carlos, Jeffrey, and Kieran, to the post show at stream.aljazeera.com. How has our audience reacted to this conversation?
I think we're getting a lot of similarities in other countries. India, places in Africa are also writing in, saying that this resonates with them as well.
Okay, very good. It's not too late to join in the conversation. You can do so by
tweeting us with the hashtag AJStream.
It's almost like we rehearsed this stuff. So on the next show, we head to Spain, where thousands of Spaniards have been chanting "Down with the King" as calls for a referendum about the monarchy grow. Is Spain ready to become a republic? That is a big question, but a big question for our next show. Stay with us. The post show is next at stream.aljazeera.com. We're talking about the Hong Kong education system and how student ethnic minorities are faring